Welcome back to Planting Life Matters. Today, I want you guys to come along with me to take a look at some suckers that I will be pruning off of some of the crepe myrtles, and mostly crepe myrtles for me in my garden. It seems that they put more suckers on than anything else that I have. So let me show you what I mean by suckers. So if you look at the bottom of my crepe myrtles, you'll see a lot of these coming up, and it just doesn't have that clean look. And so I want to cut some of those off. I've cut off a few already. So that's what I'm going to be trimming. I use loppers and I use my pruners. Now, I use my pruners mostly for just the suckers. If I'm going to use loppers, that's for larger branches. Now, people will tell you don't trim your crepe myrtles until late February, March before they start to grow in the spring. Well, that's if I'm cutting off really large branches in the top, but you can take suckers and cut those off any time of the year. So if you have little small ones like that, you can pull those off with your hand, no big deal. Some of the larger ones, I will always try to cut them at the bottom. I get in there and cut the full branch off of them to pull those off that way. And I'm going to clean this area up, make it look a lot better. There is a hawthorn, Indian hawthorn that's growing here next to it. This actually was a volunteer tree. I did not plant this crepe myrtle. So when it started to come up, I let it, and it produces really beautiful purple blooms. So I let it stay there. I, years ago, didn't know that crepe myrtles actually produced a lot of smaller trees on its own. And so that's one of the things. Sometimes I leave them, sometimes I don't. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to speed up a little bit, show you guys around the garden some of the things that I'm going to be doing today with regards to cleaning up my crepe myrtles. And then I'll come back to you. So let me show you real quick when I say volunteer tree. I didn't plant this. And if you look there, this is a new tree, a sapling that came from another crepe myrtle. In fact, this is also one as well that I have chopped down several times. I never tried to really dig out the root. It came up maybe about 2 seasons ago, and I haven't paid much attention to it. And I just thought I'd get in here and pull some grass that's coming through and clean up this area some. So I just noticed this one. Let's see how tough it is. Can I pull it out by hand? So I didn't get all of the root just then. And these roots grow pretty fast. Even on small trees, you'd be surprised. I'm gonna have to, now by me cutting this out, this tree will come back because I didn't pull all the root up. But I've cut this down several times. That's why it looks so bad. Just, didn't try to really make it pretty or anything like that. And then I decided one year, oh, I'll let it grow. It's only produced just a few white blooms on this tree, not a ton. So I haven't decided yet what I want to do with it. Maybe next spring I might dig it out because I do want to start over here. I used to have Indian hawthorns in this area, but we had a horrible freeze a couple of years ago that killed some of them off. And they, even for the ones that didn't die completely, they struggled and they started to come back some. But that's what I'm going to do most likely is get rid of this tree. I don't like it here. I want to be able to use this bed for something else. So here I switched over from my pruners to the loppers because I had some larger branches that I needed to cut. And it helps too when you get tired of bending and maybe you can stand, you have a longer reach. But there was some really tough, hard, even the smaller ones, branches that were closer to the base of the tree. And so I wanted to just clean that up. It's kind of hard to tell here, but it looks like it has a bunch of little tiny branches sticking out that I just wanted to have one single branch. Now you'll see on some of my other crepe myrtles, I have multiple trunks. I love a tree with multi-trunks, but sometimes I just want one single trunk. And earlier in the video, you may have noticed me cutting some of the branches that were higher up. Those were not suckers, but they were some low-hanging branches I needed to just walk under. And also on occasion, you may see what they call shoots, which are young, small branches that look like suckers, but they're higher up on the trunks of the tree. And those two are able, it's okay to just pull those right off or snap those off with your pruners. That's not going to do any damage to the tree. Yeah. Oh, wow, those look so good. That is looking kind of bad. Wow, look at the spider web. You see that?
Hi, bud.
All right, so now that I have trimmed some of the suckers off of the crepe myrtles, and I previously said in another video that I also tree form my Redtip Photinia shrubs, which normally are shrubs, but they grow so large. If you allow them to without trimming, they can be 20 feet tall, and I've honestly seen some 15 plus 20 feet wide. I did not want that. So this particular tree over here was a shrub that started out no more than 24 inches from the ground. And so what I do is make sure that I keep the suckers off. And in the spring is when it blooms the most, but it also, and I say bloom, what I should have said is when it puts on its new growth. And all of these turn like a beautiful, beautiful blood red. Oh, it's gorgeous in the spring. And then it's followed by, you can see a little bit here where these were flower blooms at one point. These are completely white. It doesn't do that, I noticed, in the first few years of after planting the tree. It takes a bit of maturity for those blooms to really come in. But in the meantime, every year I get a ton of suckers. And I recently took this particular tree off, the suckers off this tree. But what I didn't do is come back and put sucker punch on it. And with sucker punch, it allows me to keep the suckers from coming back in. Who is this by? Bonide. I bought this on my own. This is not sponsoring for them. It's just something that I kind of did some research on, and it seems to really work pretty well. So I am going to just spray a little bit on here. You see how it comes out really milky like? And I'm not going to spray the entire tree, only in some areas where I know that I just recently cut. And I don't have a really great way of doing this. Maybe if I had a sponge or something, I don't know. So I'm literally just going to put it so I don't waste it. I'm using my hands, not worried about any chemicals or anything like that. I'll wash my hands when I'm done. So I know I just took some new fresh cuttings from there. And then I did a couple on this particular tree as well. This also was another shrub. And I'm mentioning these particularly because in the back, and if you would come, Maddie, a little bit closer and zoom in where you can see where I cut all these suckers off. So all those little spots of where new growth was coming in. And that's a lot because it's a shrub and normally it's full at the bottom. So in order to tree form it, you got to keep up with those. But again, I only have to do this once, maybe twice a year. That's it. And it's really easy to take them off. So I do it to my crepe myrtles. And over there in that particular crepe myrtle is the first one I started working on. It looks a lot cleaner, I think, at the bottom now that the suckers are not there. And so I'm just going to go around, put some sucker punch on, and that's it. Okay guys, I am done cutting the suckers. You know what I realized in this video? Every time I say suckers, I just want to fall out laughing. I don't know, maybe I should have titled this Knock That Sucker Out, Punch That Sucker. I don't know, it just seems so weird. Anywho, so yeah, I got those all cut off and cut everything down as close to the base of the trunk as possible. Again, these are volunteer trees here I'm showing. Those bottom trunks look really gross. And again, that's because I've been cutting them as far as the suckers from the bottom trunk. I'm eventually going to take this out, like I said. And on the older crepe myrtles that I have that are multi-trunk, some people try to keep their trunks to about 3 to 5 trunks only. I allowed my crepe myrtles to grow how they wanted to. I wanted them to be wild. I wanted them to be natural. I never cut the top limbs. I never tried to keep them topped off. And by the way, there is such thing as crepe murder. I can't stand when I see people chop their crepe myrtles off, every March, well, probably February, just really, really cut them back brutally. It just seems so wrong. Do your own research. If you Google crepe murder, I promise you're going to see a lot on that. It's just wrong. I've seen some really damaged trees as a result of that over the years. But I let mine grow with all these multiple trunks intentionally because I wanted them to grow together. If you see, there's a second tree there, and then there are these two trees that meet together that creates a canopy that I can walk underneath. And the same thing with these two trees here where I've put an archway that I walk under to get to the back of the garden. So that's why I allow them to grow. But the most important thing is so I can have some privacy. And in the wintertime, I lose that when I lose my leaves because crepe myrtles are deciduous. This isn't really about crepe myrtles. I just use them as an example today because they have the suckers that are growing. Here I go again, saying the word sucker. Every time I say it, take a drink. No, just kidding. But by the way, all the foliage that you see at the bottom, those are not suckers. I should have mentioned earlier, that's actually hot lip salvia that I put on the back side. And this is a perfect time of day for you to see. I put it back there because I'm west facing and it helps to block the sun from anything that I plant up front. And so I love hosta. I love shade plants. It gets a little bit of sun in the late afternoon, maybe a little bit in the morning, which isn't so bad. But for the most part, that little trick works for me. It protects anything that I plant up front. I'm getting ready to put some carex grass, that's Everillo carex, about 12 of those that I'm using throughout the garden in the front and back. And so I will be adding those in another video later. One of my favorite graceful grasses because they give you this wonderful chartreuse color all year long, and they can handle the Texas heat, the triple digits. They are a shade plant for me. I think, I would keep them in the shade with maybe just a little bit of sun, but part sun, I should say. Regardless of what the tag says for Texas, keep that in mind. But that's it. I'm going to stop here. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, planting life matters.